Special meeting of council to order. Before I start, I do have a remark that I'd like to make, and I'd like to welcome you all today to this special meeting of council. And you're welcome to observe and participate in this afternoon's or this morning's council meeting. Before we begin our formal proceedings, I'd like to ask your cooperation on a couple of procedural matters. First, when addressing council, please speak respectfully and do not use offensive language, profanity, or insulting words against member of council, staff, or other guests. Second, if you have a camera or a cell phone with a flash or red eye minimizer, please turn the flash or minimizer off so that it is not to be distracting to members of council. And finally, please do not engage in any behavior that may be disruptive to this meeting. Should a person in attendance not follow these simple requests, they may be asked to leave the meeting immediately. On behalf of council, I'd like to thank you for your anticipated cooperation. Moving on to item number 2 in the agenda, disclosure of pecuniary interests. We have none before me at this time, but at some point throughout the meeting, if you have a pecuniary interest, please let us know for the record. Under item number 3, adoptions of minutes, we have none. Item number 4, deputations, presentations, petitions, and public meetings, we have none. And we now have a 15-minute period for comment period. This is a 15-minute period where anyone in the audience today can come forth and make a comment, not ask a question, with regards to anything on today's agenda. If there's anyone in the audience, please come forward and state your name and address for the record that would like to make a comment. We're going to give 30 extra seconds in case there is someone down in council chambers that wishes to make a comment. They'll have to come up here. So we'll just give it a few seconds. Yes, sir.
Your Worship, members of council, just waiting because I think I'm a newcomer to this entire concept and felt that probably others were more qualified to speak with. My name is Dave Morrison, 1187 Mosley Street. First of all, I would like to thank the members of council. I spoke with about half of you yesterday and tried to get in touch with more. I really appreciate the time you took to bring me up to speed on this. I spent most of yesterday reading about this. I was sort of generally aware, as all residents are before that. I understand, quite honestly, I respect what you've done over the last 4 years, and I really do appreciate that. I have something of a background in this, so I understand the pressures you are under. I understand the desire to show real improvement as you head to the polls in the fall. I understand that there is a desire to turn to the people that elected you and say, this is what we've accomplished, here we go. I also have somewhat of a concern. I'm still lost as letter of intent. I don't understand what that means. It's not a question, it's a statement. But I've read all about it. But the letter of intent, really, I think the only important date is July 27th, because that's the date when the lame duck provisions take place. And it's interesting, I would be willing to bet, I don't know, that there are project agreements ready to go tomorrow. Because essentially, once those project agreements are signed, if any changes happen after the election, we are, the residents, through their taxes, are responsible to cover all of Fran's costs. So it is kind of locking people in a little bit, at least to the point where if there is a change of view after the election, there is an incredible expenditure put upon the residents at that time. And so I understand the need to move forward, but I also understand and would simply make one mild suggestion is that we understand that the July 27th date has huge significance, not this date, not the I agree that the non-binding letter of intent, I still don't know what that means or its significance, but the reality is July 27th is significant, and I think we need to not get distracted by the letter of intent and understand that project agreements signed before that date will have huge implications moving forward as you move into an election year. Yes, the election, and many of you won in walks, and clearly stating that you ran on this particular provision. I understand it, I respect it. But you weren't elected necessarily on this specific project with this particular development scheme. I suggest merely to you that it's a wonderful idea to be developing the beach. I'm not against it, I've never been against it. Hell, I was chairman of city development in the city of Barrie for 9 of the 15 years I sat on their council. I'm not opposed to development, but I believe it needs, in the thoughtful progress of it, there should be an opportunity to ensure that developers' toes are held to the fire. And in this case, when you look at this, it almost looks like we are having our toes held to the fire if we go along with what's happening at that point. So I know that there are many people here that have been desperate for 30 some odd years, I'm told, to see some development and improvement take place in that. I understand that, I respect that, but I'm concerned about the rush to judgment. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to me. You've heard me, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. If there's anyone else in the audience who would like to come forward and make a comment, not a question, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please. You can stay right there. I think we can hear you.
Thanks. I have a big voice because I'm a teacher. My name is Heather Cable. I live at 30 Broadway Road in Wasaga Beach. I am actually here as a volunteer representative from the Wasaga Beach Figure Skating Club and the Wasaga Beach Minor Hockey Association. The president of the Wasaga Beach Minor Hockey Association and myself met yesterday for an extended period of time. We sat together last night. We tried to work through the letter of intent. In our simple thoughts, we became very concerned that in the plans we can find what is called town square lands, which we know, we hope that that is future development of a arena, a library, a cultural center, but it's no longer stated in the plan, and that's what leaves us very concerned. This is something that, as a teacher in this town, I can tell you, this town needs. I represent the kids 100%. I sit on the steering committee for this hub, and when I read this letter of intent, there is nothing there. To me, that's a concern. So I sent my letters off to council last night on behalf of both myself and the president of minor hockey. And I'm really nervous because I don't like to do this. I'm really good at speaking to grade 4s, but not to a room full of adults.
You're doing fine.
Thanks. Nowhere in this plan is there a mention of an arena. Our arena's falling down. Nowhere in this plan is there mention of a library. In all the other plans, it has been written in that the town, I'm looking in my notes, those town square lands would encompass an arena, a library, a multicultural center. It's always been in the plan. That wording has always been there. It's not there any longer. That's a concern for us. That's a concern for the kids of this community. They're our future. We need to sit here. We need to remember that they're our future. We, as adults, are short-lived here. My daughter, who's 11, is not short-lived here. They're our future. We need to remember that. That's my comment. Sorry.
No problem.
Thank you for listening.
And you're absolutely correct. I'm going to allow the Director of Economic and Development to respond to your comment because I think this is extremely important. So Andrew?
Yes, thank you for your comment. I'm hoping I can ease your fears because I want to be very clear what this letter of intent is. The letter of intent describes an agreement between FREM Building Group, the town of Wasaga Beach, on currently town-owned lands. I'm going to walk everyone through the town square that could include a library subject to council direction. FREM will not be involved in the development of what we are calling the community hub. That will be a town-driven project. So I want to make that clear that FREM has no involvement in the community hub. That process is moving in parallel to this. The Director of Recreation is leading that process, so that has not been forgotten at all. So I just wanted to make it clear that this does not pertain to the community hub. Does that answer your?
Kind of. I'm sorry, maybe this is the wrong time.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to wait till question
Yeah,
period,
for
and then
sure.
we can ask some questions. I just wanted Andrew to touch on that for you briefly,
Oh, sure. I
and
don't
we'll
mind
get back to
waiting at
that in a
all.
bit.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Rita Premich, and I've lived in Wasaga Beach with my husband Peter for the last 20 years. And I just want to make a comment on this gentleman over here. Contrary to, I can understand where he's coming from. This is just a comment. And contrary to how he feels about it, I'm very happy that there's a deadline, because I don't want delay. 20 years ago when we moved here, it was exciting to live here. It was wonderful. And then in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, it's gone down. This town is moving backwards, and we hate that aspect. So I like the deadline part of it very, very much, because that means that we have something to work towards, and that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's anyone else in the audience who would like to make a comment with respect to any item on the agenda today, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Okay, seeing no one else, we'll move on in the agenda on to item number 6, unfinished business, reviewed at the next regular council meeting. Item number 7, correspondence, we have none. And item number 8, committee, board, and staff reports. We do have one, which is the special committee of the whole of July 6th, and I will read that report. The following are the highlights from the July 6th, 2018 special committee of the whole meeting. After a brief introduction by Andrew McNeil, Director of Economic Development and Tourism, committee received a deputation from Frank Giannone, President of Fram Building Group, on the non-binding letter of intent that he has submitted to the town to develop property on Main Street and at the beachfront. Mr. Giannone spoke to the non-binding letter of intent, indicating that he views this project as a great opportunity for the town, and he spoke to the highlights of his proposal. He is excited about the opportunity and has retained an architect who has already come up with some impressive designs that will be reviewed with the community. He will be following all of the town's planning approval processes and paying all fees and charges for his component of the project. Mr. Giannone noted that he is comfortable with the LOI as it is presented to committee. Committee then received a presentation from Andrew McNeil, the Director of Economic Development and Tourism, on the purpose of the LOI and the next steps involved and the high-level components of the LOI. He spoke to a recent larger scale projects that are similar to proposal. He outlined that council approved a downtown master plan in the spring of 2017 after an extensive public consultation process. Once the master plan was approved, the town sought a developer that could work with the town in implementing the plan. Through a public process overseen by a steering committee, the Fram Building Group and Sloker Canada Corp. Were approved by council out of the 5 submissions that were received. Council then asked that the financial capacity of the companies be to undertake the project be audited, and was advised that the firms are positioned to carry out all of the proposals. Since then, the town staff, along with the town solicitors, have been working with Mr. Giannone to prepare a letter of intent outlining what is proposed, or what he proposes to do to implement the first phases of the council-approved master plan. It has taken 6 months and several drafts of the proposed letter of intent to bring to committee of the whole. Committee was advised that the town is not a partner in the development aspect other than the potential to locate a new library as part of the development in the town square and exercising its rights as the approval authority like it would do in any other development project. Under the letter of intent, the town will look to sell land to Fram on a phased basis. The intention is that the town can capture value for the land as the development proceeds. The first phase will see the development of the town square, mixed-use buildings, potential for a library, and on the beachfront, a resort and residential area. Phase 1 is estimated to bring approximately $3.7 million, and it is estimated that the gross revenue to the town from the sale of the land will be approximately $27 million. In addition, there will be one-time revenue from development charges and additional property taxes in perpetuity. Mr. McNeil advised that Fram will only be working within the boundary of the town-owned lands and emphasized that taxpayers will not be paying for private development. The town is only paying for any public components. Mr. McNeil advised that the new Facebook page called Building Downtown Wasaga Beach, a site for the development of the downtown in Wasaga Beach, has been created, and members of the community are to visit this Facebook page and ask questions or leave comments if they so choose. Before I go any further, I'm going to ask you, Andrew, to outline the key elements of the LOI, please.
Sure. So, for you, Mr. Mayor, as you indicated, the current LOI that is before council is a non-binding letter of intent. It identifies a negotiation period that would conclude July 27th of 2018. The lands in question, as you described, the first lands are the town square lands. That essentially correlates, and actually I should put up I have a copy of the appendices just to make it easier for people to follow along. The town square lands correlate to the parcels in purple on the drawing overhead. The purple parcels are currently under town ownership, and the town is working through the process on the yellow shaded parcel of land, which is the former reuse center. So the letter of intent identifies that the town square lands would be the site of a future town square, a public town square with mixed-use development on that site as well. All of this would be designed within the town-owned lands, or potentially to include the future lands if council chooses to proceed to secure them as well. But we want to be very clear that we are not designing outside of those currently town-owned lands. There have been a lot of community members concerned who live adjacent to that site, so we want to make that very clear. I have met with Fram's architect and have instructed them to design within current town-owned property. The conceptual program for the site is approximately 25,000 square feet of residential, retail on the ground floor, and we have asked Fram's architect to explore a 30,000 square foot library that would sit on those lands as well. Their architect is currently in preliminary design, and I'm hoping to receive some sketches in the coming days. The second parcel of land is referred to as the Beach Festival Square lands. Those are the lands immediately over the main bridge where the town, according to the downtown master plan, would like to see an event plaza constructed with mixed-use development on either side. The drawing in front of you is an appendix to this agreement. The red shaded lands are the lands that are currently in town ownership. The third area is referred to as the beachfront amenity lands. That essentially runs west of the Beach Festival area to 3rd Street. The land parcels shaded in blue reflect what is currently under town ownership. We have always identified that that would be the last phase of redevelopment, and the reason for that is there is a current beach strip along that area. We need to be very respectful of delivering product and amenity to our tourism customers as we redevelop, and the strategic approach is to identify the barbells, the lands to the west and the lands to the east. Once those lands are developed and complete, then we move in and start to redevelop the beachfront amenity lands. It's very important that we don't disrupt the entire beachfront through this process, because we need our tourism base in this community to continue. It's the lifeline for a lot of our residents and business owners. The last area on the west is referred to as the beachfront residential resort lands, commonly referred to as Beach Area 2. It extends from 3rd Street to 6th Street. Fram Slocker has identified some conceptual building for that lands. The idea, according to the downtown master plan, is that the beachfront resort residential lands would be developed as for sale residential product that can be put in a rental pool, and that it would operate very similar to what happens over at the Village at Blue. We desperately need an improved rental accommodation stock in our town to be able to attract families and to be able to extend our tourism season, ideally to become a 365 tourism destination. The town can program events in November, December, January, February, but if people don't have places to stay, there's no point in doing so. So we can help draw tourism here year-round, but having quality accommodation stock is absolutely critical to deliver that. The letter of intent identifies both the town square lands and the beachfront residential resort lands as phase 1. It was very important to Fram Slocker that those come out of the ground at the same time, they are prepared to build both at the same time. They have identified approximately 216 units that would go on those lands. In their letter of intent, they have identified a purchase price that they are prepared to offer. This would be subject to a land appraisal that would be conducted to make sure that we are fair market value. Phase 1 would approximately generate $13.4 million to the municipality through the sale of land, approximately $3.2 million in development charges, and we have taken a guesstimate at what the tax revenue would be over a 10-year period on those lands. It's somewhat difficult to calculate an exact number of what the tax revenue would be because it's subject to the phases rolling out, and it's hard today to nail down exactly when the phases will come on stream. Some of that is subject to work that FRAM is currently doing. It's also subject to market conditions. So we've taken a best guess. Our best guess over a 10-year period would be approximately $3.7 million in tax revenue that would flow from phase 1. FRAM was very insistent that a market clause be included in this letter of intent. What a market clause means is if we experience something akin to what happened in 2009, 2010, a global recession, where we all understand what happened with the real estate economy up in Simcoe County, FRAM Slocker, I will let you know, kept building through that recession in the GTA. The GTA market, the real estate market, remained relatively strong during that period. Simcoe County, not so much. So they requested that the ability to respond to market conditions be built into this. In my opinion, that is fair and reasonable. It also indicates that we're dealing with a developer that knows what they're doing. FRAM Slocker is a conservative developer. They are risk averse, which they should be. I think that should give this town comfort that they're not walking in promising things that they can't deliver. They are approaching this from a very realistic perspective, and having lived through what can happen in this county, they understand what they are getting into, which is very important. The Festival Square lands are very important to this municipality. We've always talked throughout the development of the master plan and in our request for expression of interest that we would like to see Festival Square developed sooner rather than later. FRAM Slocker is very willing and excited about developing the Festival Square lands. The issue that we face today is land ownership. You can see the drawing in front of you. The town does not control all of the lands that are required for development to get moving today. What FRAM would like to do is work with the municipality over the next little while and develop the strategic strategy to unlock those lands and move forward with those lands in a timely manner to meet what we have asked FRAM to do. They had, in their response to our request, they had committed to a 5 to 7 year build out of Festival Square. I think they remain committed to that, but we need a strategy to have land consolidated so that we can move forward in a timely manner. Another key component that I think the public should realize, the way the LOI has been structured is that if lands would be unlocked on a phased basis. So once FRAM has done their due diligence, they've done their market analysis, marketing, etc., they've gone to pre-sales, and they're at a point where they want to put shovels in the ground, that's the trigger for the sale of land. So no shovels go in the ground until the land has been purchased 100% by FRAM Slocker. That's how it would approach right across the beachfront and on the town square lands. That is a good strategy. It's a win-win for both sides. It helps reduce FRAM Slocker's risk, and it also minimizes the risk on the municipality because we're not letting shovels go in the ground until we've received full payment on land. I think that's important that the taxpayer understand that. Phase 1, as I mentioned earlier, beachfront and town square, would be pursued through this letter of intent. Future phases, beachfront amenity and beachfront festival square, would be unlocked through what is termed a right of first offer. FREM wanted a right of first refusal. They were prepared to accept a right of first offer. What that essentially means is when the municipality is in a position to move forward, and we will have had the ability to watch FREM in action. Have they delivered what they've promised? Is the product unfolding the way the community wants, the way council wants? Then we can make FREM an offer and say, okay, we're prepared to let you move forward on these phases subject to our terms. Here's the amount of money we would want for these lands. So it's making them an offer of what we would like to receive for those lands, and FRAM can decide whether they want to accept it or not. So that further protects the municipality. There's a bunch of legal language in here that I won't dive into unless there are questions about it, but essentially that's the high-level approach to the agreement.
Thank you, Andrew. Carrying on in the report, committee is recommending that council authorize the CAO to issue a request for proposal for appraisal services on 7 properties identified as part of the lands required for the recreation twin pad community service and retail components of the community hub. Committee then went into closed session to discuss the proposed and pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality and to receive advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege. Committee came out of closed session and passed a motion confirming the direction provided to the CAO in closed session regarding a Main Street property matter. Committee is also recommending that council authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the proposed non-binding LOI submitted by FRAM, and further that council direct staff and legal counsel to prepare a binding letter of intent for consideration at future special committee of the whole or coordinated committee meeting that maintains the substantive components of the proposed LOI, taking into account the comments made in closed session. Further, that committee directs legal counsel to consider the authority that council may wish to delegate to staff to implement the LOI over the period that council may be in a lame duck situation. On behalf of Committee of the Whole, I ask that council support the recommendations in this report. Questions or comments on this report? Deputy Mayor Byfolchi?
Thank you. I'll ask that item 2018-0606 be pulled to be voted on separately. And I did also want to make a correction in the minutes. Under number 6, it says Deputy Mayor Byfolchi requested the committee to allow Mr. Giannoni to come into closed session to clarify any further LOI questions and concerns. It was actually the specific purpose was to go in so that he could clarify which schedules were part of the agreement that he signed. It was a very specific reason. It wasn't open to all questions. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Bray?
Yeah, just one question came up when Mr. McNeil was speaking, and you talked about the town square lands and the 30,000 square foot retail or library, or so we have been talking about a 30,000 square foot library. If that becomes the base for a mixed use facility and there's condos up above, how are the shared spaces handled? Would we be leasing back our library? Like, are we selling them the land, and then are we going to be permanent renters of our municipal library?
Andrew?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, there's a couple options on how to incorporate a library into the development, and FRAM's architect are currently exploring a few scenarios. One scenario could have a library in the ground floor of a mixed-use building. It's quite common, happens all over the province. The way it would work is essentially it would become a strata condo. What a strata condo means is you can have multiple condos on top of each other, all under different ownership. So the ground floor, assuming it was a library, could be owned outright by a municipality, and the floors above can be owned outright by private residential. Again, that is quite common, and you enter into shared facility agreements in such a scenario. Another option that we will look at is a standalone library as part of that development, which would not require a strata condo. So there's a couple options that council can consider. Excuse me.
Other questions or comments? Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Richard. Just for clarification, in your review of the the highlights of the meeting. I think you said $3 million for the property, and I believe it's 13.4 is what Andrew said, and I wondered what the $3 million was.
I believe it was 3.7 million. It was for phase 1 only. And property taxes.
Taxes, thank you.
Right. All right, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I have a motion moved by Councillor Stockwell and seconded by Councillor Eagle, resolved that Council receive the special committee of the whole report of July 6, 2018 as circulated and approves all actions contained therein apart from resolution number 2018-0606, which will be dealt with on a separate matter as requested by the Deputy Mayor. Questions or comments? Madam Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Worship. We'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Byfolchi?
In favor?
Councillor Gray?
In favor?
Councillor Eagle?
In favor.
Councillor Smith?
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell?
Favor.
Mayor Smith?
In favor.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. The motion is carried.
Thank you. And now we move on to the separated portion moved by Councillor Stockwell, seconded by Councillor Eagle. Resolved that Committee of the Whole recommends that Council authorize the Mayor and Clerk to execute the proposed non-binding LOI submitted by FRAM, and further that Committee directs staff and legal counsel to prepare a binding letter of intent for consideration at future special Committee of the Whole or coordinated committee meetings that maintains the substantive components of the proposed LOI, taking into account the comments made in closed session. And further that Committee directs legal counsel to consider the authority that council may wish to delegate to staff to implement the LOI over the period that council may be in a lame duck situation. Questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Byfolchi.
Thank you. I think we could be here all day answering questions on this because I think there's a lot of unanswered ones, but I'm going to stick to a statement today. I've clearly laid out on my website in great detail why I can't in good faith support this LOI, and I encourage residents to review it and contact me if you wish to discuss it further. We heard from staff on Friday that the Treasurer has reviewed the financial modeling of this agreement and that it is acceptable to her. This information has not been shared with Council. I would expect that prior to the binding LOI coming forward, that we will have a staff report clearly laying out to Council why this agreement is financially in the town's best interest. I have heard over and over, you can't control what you don't own. Well, by signing this LOI, this Council is handing control of our entire town-owned beachfront properties to one developer. This will tie the hands of future councils and this community for possibly decades. This council does not have the information required to make this decision today. I believe there are some who support this and truly believe it will be the right thing. However, I believe your blind faith will result in some horrific, unintended consequences that will be paid for by the community for decades. My concern for the taxpayers, the future of our town, and a need to share information led me to my first meeting with the OPP Anti-Racket Branch on April 5th, 2016. The concerns I shared with them that day and since are now being realized. To the public, please do your own due diligence, and if you believe this council is making wrong decisions as stewards of your community, you need to make your voices heard as time is of the essence. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Andrew?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to respond to the one comment that was made there. I want the Deputy Mayor to understand very clearly that this letter of intent was crafted by the town's legal counsel with input from FRAM. So I'm not sure if your allegation about wrongdoing, I'm trying to understand what that meant. Because if you're trying to say that staff and this letter of intent is somehow needs to be forwarded to the OPP, I think that's a very serious allegation.
Deputy Mayor Byfolchi.
I've made my statement, and I believe the staff member is reading a little bit too much into it. Thank you.
Could you please explain what you meant by that statement?
I'm not arguing with the staff member. I've made my statement.
As a right of personal privilege, I would like to understand what you were trying to say.
I've made my statement.
Thank you. Councillor Smith?
I would like clarification on what she's calling anti-racket.
I've made my statement.
I'm sorry, that doesn't do.
First time.
No, it's not. I'm not going to say no.
Mr. CAO?
Thank you. I was going to approach a different question, and council may want to return to that question as well. The Deputy Mayor made a statement with respect to control, and I want to make it clear that the town, under various pieces of legislation, whether it be the Planning Act or the Municipal Act, or council's procedures, has to follow those pieces of legislation with respect to how it sells property, how development is approved. Under the Planning Act, the town does retain control with respect to the site development, how it's developed, the cost that the town may contribute to the public sector components of the development. So when the mayor uses the term that the town loses control, I just wanted to clarify that under
Great
the
clarification, the deputy mayor.
Sorry, the deputy mayor, yes,
Thank
pardon
you.
me, the deputy mayor mentions control. And losing control, I think under the various pieces of legislation, the town does retain control as it would over any other developer that was developing within the municipality. I just wanted to clarify that.
Councillor Stockwell?
Mr. Mayor, that today, maybe I haven't been paying attention, but today's the first day I've heard the comment that the OPP anti-racket squad has been approached. I find that quite disturbing, and I'd like to get more information. Now, I understand that the deputy mayor has made a statement, a written statement that she's read, and says that she won't take it from there. But I find it hard that we should just hear that and leave it hanging out there without some further information. So, Mr. Mayor, I would ask you, as the chair, to get some further information for this council, please.
Thank you. Councillor Bray?
Thank you. Did you have a response?
Yeah.
Well, but I'm calling upon you right now,
Then I
Councillor
won't
Bray.
answer. Okay, mine doesn't in no way reflect Councillor Stockwell's comments. I have a new, so I too have a statement. I believe we, your elected members of council, are being rushed to approve a document that is not complete. It's one that will change the future of Wasaga Beach. It might look good to some people, but this LOI does not satisfy my fiduciary duty. I was not elected to gamble with our town's future. I believe process is being manipulated for the favor of some, and that is not fair to all. In last week's Committee of the Whole meeting, staff called this letter of intent a land deal, and then went on to state that the Pier 8 development in Hamilton is similar to what we're doing with Fram today. I have since spent a lot of time reviewing the Hamilton process, and it's only served to highlight why I'm not comfortable with this LOI that's before us today. The City of Hamilton procurement process was much different than ours. They didn't rely on an expression of interest to choose one developer so early in the process like we did. Once they had their vision, which is similar to our downtown master plan, they issued a request for qualifications, which was similar to our expression of interest. 5 were pre-qualified to move forward to the next step. In my opinion, this is what we're missing. The proponents then had 6 months to develop their proposal based upon Hamilton's competitive 141-page RFP, which then went on to include 21 addendums. This process saw the proponents spending their money to secure the project. There were 4 submissions, and all included architectural drawings, user stories, presentation panels, financials, and a video showing their development plans. After a public awareness and feedback campaign, council confirmed their choice and the preferred proponent was identified. That proponent won the exclusive opportunity to negotiate the purchase and development of the lands based on their submitted proposal. I haven't seen a development plan or had more than one developer to choose from. And to tie up Wasaga Beach's most valuable asset, our beachfront land, without one does not seem like the right or a responsible decision for me to make today. If it's true that you can't control what you don't own, then the town loses control and the timing by approving this LOI today. Though our mayor might not like my objection, I will not take a vacation. I will stand up for what I believe. And from what I hear my residents, I will stand up and speak for what I believe is right for our town. Thank you.
Andrew?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to be very clear and walk council through the process that was followed, and I want to address that specific question or comment.
Please do.
Just a point of order.
Council,
No, 1 second. Go
We
ahead,
went
Councillor.
through this process at the committee, the whole meeting on
I would like
Friday?
to remind, because you're raising.
Yeah.
I was
Andrew, 1
there.
second, please.
I've since reviewed it to the Hamilton one. They're quite different.
They are, and
That's
I'd
my
like to
statement
explain.
today. I don't need to hear ours again. I think that was quite, I'm comfortable with that.
Thank you. Councillor, Andrew, go ahead.
Would
Yep, go
could
ahead.
I walk?
Sure. Absolutely.
For those watching on television and in the audience, I'd like to walk people through the process.
Okay.
There have been allegations of misconduct. I would like to be very clear about the process that was followed.
Very important. Go ahead, Andrew, please.
In 2016, council gave direction to staff to undertake a master plan. In March of 2017, council approved that master plan. In April of 2017, the town, with council's approval and direction, issued a request for expression of interest to secure a development partner to work with the municipality to help implement the vision that council had approved. In June of 2017, council approved Fram Building Group as its preferred developer after a public process. I want to read a statement from the request for expression of interest that addresses Councillor Bray's comment.
Go ahead.
The shortlist process. The steering committee will review submissions and recommend a shortlist of developers to town council. Shortlisted developers will be requested to participate in an interview process, make a presentation to town council, and provide input to the process. Following the interview and presentation, the town may request that shortlisted developers submit a formal bid proposal, or the town may elect to proceed to select a developer or developers with whom a development agreement might be negotiated. The key thing that council needs to understand here, this RFEOI was reviewed by the town solicitors. The town had options. The city of Hamilton chose one path. The town of Wasaga Beach chose another. Both are equally valid, both are equally proper. The city of Hamilton chose to proceed from an RFEOI to an RFP process. This council, under recommendation from staff and the steering committee, decided to move to development agreement stage, which is the process we are working through right now. Part of what goes into identifying whether you go RFP or the process we've gone is the quality and quantity of submissions that you get to your request for expression of interest. Hamilton received dozens of responses from very qualified developers. We did not. So it was very clear to the steering committee right out of the gate that there was one developer that stood above the pack that had the ability to actually pull this plan off in a conservative, prudent manner. Hamilton chose another path, equally proper, equally valid. So I want that to be clear that what we have done is proper. It was outlined in their request for expression of interest that council approved.
Other question, Councillor Bray?
Just a comment, I didn't say it was improper. I said it didn't give me the confidence to move forward because I have seen no development plan. We're giving away a lot with this LOI, and I'm not comfortable with the procurement policy that we chose to use.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, I have a few comments.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
you haven't dealt with my concern.
I'm sorry, Councillor. I will deal with that as soon as I'm finished my comments.
Thank you.
Listen, I don't believe through this process, as I understand it, the town is giving anything away. Anything we move forward with from this point on will be done in a phased approach. The town's people will be paid in full for their property that they so choose to sell. And we will see development occur on the town-owned lands that this community, I believe, has been working for 20, 30 years to try and see happen. Ladies and gentlemen, this community has tried for many, many years to see development in this community, to bring us back onto the map, if you will. Past councils have looked at development agreements or have been pitched development agreements for our beachfront on more than one occasion. And on more than one occasion, past councils and members of this council who sat on past councils voted in favor of those developments. And we see today where those developments with indoor ski hills got us where we are today. At the end of the day, we have said, this council, from the beginning, that we will look to this redevelopment of Beach Area 1 and 2, the creation of a downtown for our citizens that is affordable, sustainable, and most importantly, reasonable. Something that we can actually make happen. We don't have indoor ski hills. We don't have multi 30, 40-story condominiums. We don't have a lot of those great visions that we've seen in the past. But what I believe we do have is a plan that we can enact and we can make happen. And the time, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, is now. I've heard people say, it's not the right time. And you've heard me say, when is the right time? Because I believe it was 20 years ago. So I want to make clear that I do not believe, nor do I believe our solicitors believe, or our staff believe, that we are giving away anything. We have made an investment in this community, a very important investment in this community. And an investment that I see by the numbers in front of me that I'm reading, unless I'm reading a different report from someone else, that we will see this investment pay for itself and then some, and in perpetuity. Meaning dollars will continue to come into this community for our citizens forever because of this investment. We're unlocking this in phases. We're doing that for a specific reason. And it's to ensure that the town is protected. If the developer we have chosen, and I have no reason to believe that they would, but if for some reason they do not keep their word, they do not give us exactly what we've agreed upon, it is our option, ladies and gentlemen, to say no more, to then cease and move on. We're doing this in phases so as that we're not going to see building occurring all over the place and something should go wrong and now we have half-finished buildings. There's a reason why staff and legal counsel and this council have gone through a lengthy public process, 3+ years. There's a reason why staff have gone back and forth along with legal counsel and this developer, I believe over 22 drafts of this LOI. And it's to ensure that the town of Wasaga Beach, you folks in the audience, your interests are protected. Now, I hear things today and I hear things in other days about anti-racket and so on and so forth. And for me, I'm sorry, with all due respect, it's white noise. To make an accusation that perhaps there is something underhanded happening here, quite frankly, is uncalled for, and it's irresponsible. And it is unacceptable in my personal opinion. I invite anybody who wishes to look into this process to do so. Because I am confident as your mayor and as the head of this council that there has been nothing happen underhanded. Our legal counsel, one of the best legal corporations in this country, has been beside us and on this all the way through. And we've done that specifically so when these allegations are raised, that we are confident they cannot and will not be proven. Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you that I believe wholeheartedly in what we're doing. I believe that moving this community forward with this downtown master plan and the redevelopment of our beachfront is a great thing for our community. And I am going to support this wholeheartedly all the way through to the end. You've all heard the question. I'll ask the deputy clerk to call the question.
Thank you, Your Worship. With the motion having been read, we'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Byfolchi?
Opposed.
Councillor Bray?
Opposed.
Councillor Ego?
In favor.
Councillor Smith?
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell?
In favor.
Mayor Smith?
In favor.
The vote is 4 in favor and 2 opposed. The motion is carried.
Thank you. I've been asked by a member of council to take a 5-minute break, so we will do that and return in 5 minutes. And council, please keep it quick. All right, we'll call this meeting back to order. Before I go any further on the agenda, I just want to point out that Deputy Mayor Bifolchi, you made a statement earlier. And in that statement, you indicated that you had been in contact with the OPP with respect to the anti-rackets branch. And I would like you to, if you would please, because I understand you don't wish to debate or talk about it today, but I'm going to ask you to please provide full disclosure on that comment to the CAO as soon as possible, so that the rest of council, staff, and our legal team can certainly look at this. I think it's a very broad statement that absolutely you'll be able to address my comment here, but you've made a very broad statement that I think implicates many folks, including this whole council, our whole staff, and including the legal team, and as well as the developer on this project, in my opinion. So I'm going to ask that you please give that disclosure. You, when I'm finished, yes. Please give full disclosure on your comment to the CAO as soon as you possibly can. Go ahead.
As a member of this council, as a resident of this community, I can go to any higher level to share concerns. I've been to the Ombudsman's office. I've spoken to different levels. OPP anti-racket branch was one of them. I'm not accusing anybody here. What I said was I took my concerns to them because I felt the need to share it with someone. I'm allowed to do that.
And all I'm asking is that you share it with us then.
Yeah, I just did.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments before we move on? Seeing none, under item number 9, notices of motion, we have none. Item number 10, motion, notice of motion that has previously been given. This is to be reviewed at the next regular meeting of council. Item number 11, bylaws and confirmatory bylaws. I have one here moved by Councillor Eagle, seconded by Councillor Stockwell, resolved that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Wasaga Beach at its special council meeting held Tuesday, July 10th, 2018, be received and to be deemed to be read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered number 2018-60. Questions or comments? Madam Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Bifolchi?
In favor?
Councillor Bray?
In favor.
Councillor Eagle?
In favor.
Councillor Smith?
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell?
Favor.
Mayor Smith?
In favor?
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. The motion is carried.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 12, calling of committee meetings, we have none. And item 13, question period. This is a 15-minute session where members of the audience can come forward and ask questions pertaining to items on this morning's agenda, and this morning's agenda only. If you have a question, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please. Again, I'll ask if anyone in the audience has a question on this morning's agenda. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, go stand up again. Once again, Heather Cable, 30 Rodrian Road. I'm actually representing, not myself personally, but Wasaga Beach Minor Hockey Association and Skate Canada Wasaga Beach. So my question once again.
Sorry, Heather. I'm
sorry.
I want the director, he's in the hall, he's heading in here. I just want him to hear your question so he can answer it for you. Thank you, go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. So once again, I'm stuck, and I don't mean to be this pain to anyone. Andrew, maybe you can help, because it seems like in this town square lands, which I have heard called the community hub for months and months and months, but now it's called town square lands. Originally was to host a proposed, I'll use the word proposed because I don't want to be caught saying this is what it was, a proposed library, which apparently is still in the plan from Fram, a proposed multicultural center, which is so important to recognize all peoples, which is no longer in the plan. A proposed arena, twin pad, it was stated that we would get one. There would be a twin pad here. It is no longer proposed. I understand that that's the town's undertaking at this point. So if it is not here in this downtown area, is it somewhere else? Is it out at the sports park? I seem to be in a loss. I'm on the steering committee for the hub, and I'm sitting here going, I don't know the answers, and I have a membership to report to. That's me doing my due diligence as president of City of Canada Wasaga Beach. I respond to them. This is not me. I'm not here standing here representing me.
We understand fully.
I would stay at home and not come here because, once again, I do well with grade 4s, not so good with adults. I'm really, really concerned. I'm really concerned. I want to know where the money has gone for the arena, because apparently there was some. That was my understanding. But that was years ago that there was some money for an arena. I don't know where it is. It was supposed to come with something, I don't know. Once again, I sit on the committee. Where's the arena? Where's the arena in this plan? Where's the multicultural center? Children need these things. I'm not here for me. My time here, lived on this earth, is short, but my kids is not. I want to know where it is. I think we should all be here to look out for the future of our community. I don't like bickering, so I don't do well with that. It makes me nervous and upset. I want to know where the arena is. I want to know where the multicultural center is. I understand that there's a let's remember, proposed library. Fram also proposed an arena. It was in the plan. Fram maybe didn't. It was in the plans I looked at. There will be an arena. There'll be a twin pad. I've heard it said. I'm sorry.
Heather, I'm gonna stop you there. We're gonna take a deep breath, have a seat, and we're gonna do our very best to calm your concerns and to answer your questions.
To be answered. There are so many questions, and I have a membership to go back to. I have to report back to minor hockey because they couldn't be here today.
So we're going to do our best, Heather, to answer your questions today, and I would also suggest that perhaps you could reach out and we will have staff come out to your association and also make a presentation so as that everyone can understand it clearly.
I'll ask at the hub again this afternoon.
All right.
I'm meeting at 4:30.
Great, thank you. Andrew, we'll start with you.
I'm going to try and explain this as clear as I possibly can.
I got it last time when you said Fram isn't to build it. But then why is Fram building us a proposed library?
Okay, so let me walk you through. This is an image from the master plan. The lands that we are talking with Fram about are essentially right here. The community hub is across the street on the other side of Beck.
Oh, I know where it is.
So the lands that we are exploring the community hub on are between Main, Beck, River Road, and Stonebridge Avenue.
Yeah.
Two separate processes.
I thought.
So,
I'm sorry.
no, sorry. So you might have caught the other item on the agenda that council approved was to move forward with land appraisals.
Oh no, I know about that.
So
Yeah.
those land appraisals are for this land in here, excluding the residential homes, to look at what it would cost to potentially purchase land to accommodate the arena, cultural center, whole health and human services, so everything you're looking for.
Library was supposed to be there too.
We explored a couple of options. There was a whole community hub process, there was public meetings, and we looked at an all-in-one concept where the library could be part of the community hub, or we looked at a campus scenario where some of the components of the hub could extend along Main Street and perhaps get included in the town square development. So what is in front of council today is we have a developer who has said, if council would like the new library to be here, fronting on your town square, they're prepared to work with us to make that happen. All the other components have not been forgotten. The town is working through that. This is just coming a little quicker than the other components. So we're on the same page. If I'm not explaining that well enough, I'm happy to spend whatever time is required to walk you through in detail. But the town is working through both processes in parallel.
Okay. I get that because I've heard it all before, Andrew. You and I have talked. I've talked with the mayor extensively
Yes.
about this. at meetings with our association.
So just to further elaborate, Fram Slaugher
No,
is
no.
a mixed-use developer.
Yeah.
They do not build arenas.
No, I know that.
So that's why it's a town project, the arena,
Yes.
and that's why it's not involved in this agreement, but it has not been forgotten. It is a priority of this municipality and I believe of this council.
But the library is still,
So I'm going to try and help out here a bit if I can, and maybe I can't. But the reason the library is been included in this section is because it is sitting on the town square, and we believe that perhaps a real good spot for the library and a good anchor tenant, if you will, or ownership on the town square would be a beautiful library. And so that's why if you read the report, you look at the report, it says could be a library, could be, because that is not firm yet. Council has not made that decision. So that's the only reason, Heather, you're seeing the library instead of in the hub in this particular case for this particular model in the town square. It could very well end up being further on down the road by the arena, part of the arena. We don't have that answer yet. The other thing that I want to make clear is that Andrew is absolutely correct. Be rest assured that the Twin Pad Arena is a priority of this council. You sit on the hub steering committee. We are moving forward with that at a fairly quick pace. Chris is leading that and doing an excellent job. And we're doing that because it is a priority and we want to get all the information we need so as that we build the best arena, Twin Pad Arena, sport / complex for, as you say, and I couldn't agree more, the future of our town, our kids in Wasaga Beach. So we can have more. I want to ask the CAO to comment or speak to your comment on you want to know where the money went.
well, I can speak to him at another time. It's not for everyone in this room to worry about at this moment, because it's not really what your meeting has been about.
I understand that, but you've made the comment, so I just want the CEO to touch on that so as that people can understand, the issues or reasons or why you might think that. Mr. CAO?
Thank you, Worship. The town has reserve funds that it's been setting aside money over several years, many years, for the construction of a new arena. And those funds are still there, and at the appropriate time, they will be accessed as part of the funding for the new Twin Pad. So those funds have stayed in the Reserves Council for 2018. Did allocate some monies for the design, of which you're aware of. The design process has started with respect to the Twin Pad. So some monies are being spent this year, next year, and the monies are still in reserve for the future use for the construction of the arena.
All right, we have time for one or two more questions. Is anyone else in the audience who has I'm sorry? Did you have a question, sir? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
William Kingston, 27 Foxwood in Beach here. My question is, looking at the letter of intent and speaking and listening to Mr. McNeil today, it's Fram Stokler, Fram Stokler, Fram Stokler. But in the letter of intent, it's Fram only. It looks like Stokler is backed out. Why are they not part of the agreement as a signee or part of the agreement? Because, the audit that was done was on Stokler because they were the money man. And if they're not in it, is that audit valid anymore?
So this question was asked at our last meeting and answered, but I'll have Andrew answer that again for you. Mr. Kingston, Andrew?
And in response to your question, Frank Giannone, the president of Fram Building Group, has also publicly responded on the Facebook site and has explained that very point. Okay, so I'll convey what he said on Facebook because he wanted it to be in the community, the facts. Fram Building Group plus Slaugher Canada Corporation are going to be partners on this project. The letter of intent only shows Fram Building Group's name because Fram Building Group will be bonding the project. That's required in development. That's very common. That is the way that Fram Slaugher approaches all of their projects that they do right across North America. Once the development agreements are actually signed, there will likely be a subsidiary of Fram Slaugher created that the agreements are in the name of. So what I'm getting at is it's just legal terminology, but Frem
That's what
Slocker.
I'm thinking too. The legal part is,
But Frem Slocker are partners, that has been
are they
publicly.
partners on the signing?
Frem Building Group is bonding the project,
Yeah.
so they are signing the agreement.
And what happened in Collingwood is, well, we ran out of money, we couldn't get our money, our investors would
Well,
not provide the money.
Mr. Kingston, I want to make something very
So I
clear.
don't wanna see us have.
I want to make
the same
something
way.
very clear, Mr. Kingston. First of all, we can't speak to what happened in Collingwood because it wasn't us.
I-
But as you've just
That was
indicated,
his statement that I read.
if you've just indicated that I don't agree that that's an accurate statement that they ran out of money. I think
Well,
there was a
they
whole
ran-
lot
their
more to
investor-
it than that.
Their investor refused to release money to continue the project.
Well, again, we are not going to get into that here today. That has nothing to do with the town of Wasaga Beach.
Should we have some provision to stop that from occurring here?
What I can tell you is that our legal team has gone through this and has indicated to us that we are on solid ground.
I would like to see if Stokler was the business audited, to see that they are.
Do you have
capable of
another
doing
question,
the
Mr.
project.
Kingston?
Yes. Why are they not in the signing? Never mind the bonding, why are they not signing?
The answer is the answer that was just given, because they're not bonding the project. So I'm going to let Andrew give you one more attempt at this, and we're going to move to the next question. Andrew?
So I want to be very clear, when the audit was done, Frem Building Group, their books were audited in extreme detail by the independent third-party auditor. The auditor was very comfortable recommending Frem Building Group. If you read the auditor's report, it says Frem Building Group as the preferred developer. I don't want to get into the details of Collingwood, but I think there's some misconceptions that I want to correct. There was no issue on the part of Frem or Slocker in Collingwood. In the height of the global meltdown in 2009, the bank that Frem Slocker was using, which is based in the Netherlands, who they had a proven track record of working with, the projects in Port Credit were financed through the same bank.
Right.
The bank went bankrupt, as did a number of other banks across the world. It's unfortunate. It's kind of a generational thing that happened. Frem Slocker was locked out of the project. It went into receivership. They had no ability to get control of the project. They tried to buy the project from the bank. The bank would not release it. It took until 2016 to clear up that situation. As soon as the bank agreed to sell the project to Frem and they bought it, they got control back and they started building immediately. So I want people to understand there was no issue with Frem or Slocker on the Collingwood project.
No.
It was the bank.
My understanding was basically the same as you're saying. People that were supplying the money to Stokler, which is the money man in the project.
Yeah.
Fram does the building, they do the financial end.
Yeah.
Well, if they're not on this, who is on the financial end of our contract?
And the answer to that is, I think Andrew has said, is
There isn't
Stoker.
anybody.
No, it's Stoker.
Stoker never had the money in Collingwood, they didn't have it in the audit.
All right.
Why do they have it now?
I'm going to ask you to speak to Andrew maybe afterwards, and he can try to explain it to you again. All right, thank you, Mr. Kingston. If there's anyone else in the audience who has a question, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
Glenn Smale, 27 Sandy Cove. Mine is more of a comment, and I apologize. I'm getting myself all worked up and nervous now. I think this council has done an outstanding job of being very upfront and forthcoming all the way through this whole process. And I think it's at nauseum that we're getting bored and fatigued with all the innuendos that seem to fly out there. But what really gets in my craw is to have someone take a run at staff and they can't defend themselves properly. Now, when you talk about innuendos, you throw out, it's like a hand grenade. It might stick, it might not, and I find that very distasteful. I really do. And it's only a comment I have to make because I just think that it's not proper. I think everyone in this council has done an outstanding job. The staff has done an outstanding job of getting this project. I hope I'm alive to see it finished. But when I hear comments made about calling in the police or making comments, I just find that distasteful because it sends an would cast a spell over everybody.
Do-
That's not fair.
Do you have a question?
I'm just making a comment, I
All right.
apologize.
Thank you. Order, please. We'll now move on in the agenda, the closed session. I have a motion moved by Councillor Ego and seconded by Councillor Bray, resolved that pursuant to Section 239(2)C of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, the next portion of the special meeting of council of July 10th, 2018 be closed to the public to discuss the proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality. Madam Deputy Clerk?
Thank you, Your Worship. With the motion having been read, we'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Baffolchi? In favor. Councillor Bray?
In favor.
Councillor Ego?
In favor.
Councillor Smith?
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell?
Favor.
Mayor Smith?
In favor?
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. The motion is carried.
Thank you. We'll give members of the public a couple of minutes to clear the room, please.
we just,
Are we in opening and are we?
point of order, Your Worship? Are we still going to approve the minutes? Or-
All right, we will now, we've just come out of,
It opened.
yeah, we've just come out of closed session where council's had some discussion with staff on possible acquisition, disposition of land. We've given clear direction to staff on that. And we'll now move on in our agenda to reports from closed session. Any questions on the closed session reports? Seeing none, do I have a motion here?
Oh, wait, behind the- oh, wait, I lied, wait here.
There it is, okay.
Sorry. You could put this one through. I'll get this one.
Sure, okay.
These are for minutes pertaining to the closed session. Is that good, George?
So we have two motions. One is 15A, Special Committee of the Whole, May 28th, moved by Councillor Ego, second by Councillor Stockwell. Resolved that Council does hereby adopt a closed session special meeting of the Committee of the Whole, minutes dated July 6, 2018, as circulated. Questions or comments? Madam Deputy Clerk?
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Befelch.
In favor?
Councillor Bray.
In favor?
Councillor Ego.
In favor?
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor?
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. The motion is carried.
Thank you. And moving on to item 15B, moved by Councillor Bray, seconded by Deputy Mayor Byfolchi. Resolved that Council is hereby confirm the direction given to the Director of Economic Development and Tourism pertaining to the Main Street and Spruce Street property matters. Questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Deputy Clerk?
Thank you, Worship. We'll call for the vote. Deputy Mayor Byfolchi. In favor. Councillor Bray. In favor. Councillor Ego.
In favor?
Councillor Smith.
In favor.
Councillor Stockwell.
Favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor?
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. The motion is carried.
Thank you, and this meeting is adjourned.
Good.
I didn't go to the board.
He sent me an email because he's been trying to do it. I said, I'm telling him, I didn't get a copy of that
He's in
email.
the dome.
Yeah, did you get an email from me?
Pretty dumb.
He's trying to email me, and I keep saying, I'm not getting it. I don't know if he's spelling my name wrong or.
And it was weird because it went right into
Bart.
my junk. And then I tried to move it to my inbox. And it would go to my inbox for a second and then it would flip right back into my junk. Like it did it.
So maybe it's got a,
I don't know.
yeah.
Be careful.